All right, let's dive in. Today, we're all going to be data detectives. We're going on an investigation into the numbers you see everywhere, in the news, at your job, you name it. Our mission? To find the truth that's hiding in plain sight, inside the data. So, let's get started. It all starts with one very common, very sneaky clue, the word average. We hear it all the time, right? Average salary, average home price, average score. But this one little number, it can be a master of disguise. Sometimes it's telling you the truth, and other times it's telling a really convincing lie. The question is, how do you tell the difference?
So, our investigation is going to start with the most common suspect of all, the average itself. To really crack this case, we've got to get inside its head and figure out exactly how it works.
Okay, so the most common type of average has a technical name, the mean. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like a seesaw. The mean is that one perfect spot where you could put the stand to make the whole thing balance perfectly. It really is the data's center of gravity.
Let's take a look at a small company. We've got 5 employees, we just add up their salaries, divide by 5, and we get a mean salary of $60,000. And, looking at the actual salaries, that feels about right. It seems like a pretty fair number. But, like any good detective knows, sometimes the first clue you find is just a distraction. And here comes the twist. A new character enters our story, the CO, and the CEO makes a lot more money. So what does that do to our nice, neat, balanced picture?
Whoa, look at that. The CEO's salary is what we call an outlier. It's an extreme value that's way off from everybody else. And it yanks that center of gravity, that balance point, way, way over to one side. The mean salary just explodes from $60,000 to over $291,000. This shows you the mean's biggest weakness.
So here's the real question. If you were applying for a job at this company and they told you the average salary was almost $300,000, would that be an honest picture of what you could expect to make? Of course not. The mean is now lying to us. We definitely need a new tool. And that brings us to the second tool in our detective kit. If the mean is so easily tricked by these outliers, we need something tougher, something more reliable to help us find the real center of the story. So let me introduce you to the hero of our story, the median. The median could not care less about extreme values. All it does is line everybody up from smallest to largest, and it just picks the person standing in the exact middle. It's all about position. Let's see our hero in action. We line up all 6 salaries, including the CEO. Now, since we have an even number of people, there's not one single person in the middle, right? So we just take the 2 who are in the middle, the $60,000 and $65,000 salaries, and find the average of just those 2. The median salary is $62,500. Now, that sounds like a much more typical salary at this company. And that right there is the median superpower. It wouldn't matter if the CEO made $1.5 million or $150 million. The middle of the line would still be in the exact same spot. The median just ignores the pull of those outliers. Okay, so now we have 2 ways to find the center. But the center isn't the whole story. To be a really good data detective, you have to look beyond just the center. You have to see the whole scene. How spread out are all the other clues? Take a look at this case. We've got 2 teams. Team A is incredibly consistent. Every single person scored an 8. Team B is kind of all over the place. But here's the crazy part. If you calculate the mean and the median for both of these teams, you get the exact same number, 8. So the center is identical, but the stories they tell are completely different. This idea is called dispersion, or spread. It's really just asking, how tightly packed is the data, or how scattered is it? If the dispersion is large, it means that center number, whether it's the mean or the median, isn't really a very good summary of the group. So, how do we capture this whole story of spread in just one number? For that, we'd need to bring out the heavy machinery. Our next tool is one of the most powerful in all of statistics. It's called the standard deviation. Now, I know that sounds complicated, but the idea behind it is actually really simple. The standard deviation just answers the question, on average, how far is each person from the group's average? A small number means everyone is clustered tightly together. A big number means they're all spread out. Now, we're not going to do all the math, but let's just follow the logic. First, it finds the mean. That's our center point. Then it measures the distance of every single data point from that center.
It does a couple of quick math steps, squaring them, finding an average, and then taking a square root, and what you get is one powerful number that tells you the typical distance from the center. So we've collected some serious clues. We have a measure of the center and a measure of the spread. But what if we could see the entire story in just a single picture? Well, that's where our final tool comes in. To build this picture, we just need 5 key numbers. We need the absolute lowest value and the absolute highest. We need our friend, the median, right in the middle. And then we need 2 other points, one that marks the 25% point and one that marks the 75% point. And with just those 5 numbers, we can draw what's called a box plot. The box in the middle literally shows you where the middle 50% of your data lives. The line inside is our trusty median. And those little lines that stick out, the whiskers, they reach all the way to the absolute minimum and maximum values. This thing is basically the data detective's ultimate dashboard. In one simple picture, you can see the center, you can see the spread of the main group, and you can see the entire range from top to bottom. It tells the whole story all at once. So our investigation is complete. We've cracked the case of the misleading average, and we filled our detective's toolkit with some really powerful new tools. Let's just lay them all out on the table and review what we found. Here it is, your field guide. If you want the typical value, use the mean, but always watch out for outliers. If you need the true middle, the median is your best friend. It's immune to extremes. If you want to know how consistent the data is, you need the standard deviation. And if you want the whole story at once, the box plot is your go-to. Each tool has a job, and each one has a weakness you need to know about. So I'll leave you with this final thought. The next time you see that word average, your detective work is just beginning. You now know to ask, okay, but what is the median and what is the spread? Because asking those next 2 questions is how you go from being misled by the numbers to truly understanding the world they describe.